kind of differences that need to impede genuine accommodation once it is clear what the president wants and once National Security Advisor is prepared to act as the enforcer.
That would be retired Marine General Jim Jones. While he was still wearing stars, was one of the first to blow the whistle on the backward slide in Afghanistan.
We're not making progress. We're losing ground.
Strong people with strong views. Remember Defense Secretary Rumsfeld and Secretary of State Powell? A dream team on paper, rivals in practice. Now a new dream team has to prove they really are a team. David Martin, The Pentagon.
And we are joined now by someone in a position to assess all of this. He is a seasoned political analyst and historian, a man who has served on Capitol Hill in a variety of capacities. He has also been the Dean of International Studies at Grove City College. He spent 27 years on the political science faculty of Clemson University and is currently Dean of Regent University's Robertson School of Government, Dr. Charles Dunn. Good evening, sir.
Good to be with you.
Thank you very much. Overall, your assessment of the people selected by President-elect Obama.
He's sending a much different signal than most people expected. If you were George Soros now and had helped to bankroll a lot of the Obama campaign, you might wonder if you're getting a proper return on your investment. The signal that the Obama people are sending now suggests that President-elect Obama will take a much more centrist position regarding foreign and military policy. It'll be a policy more reflective of someone who favors strength rather than someone who favors a weaker position in foreign and military policy. Now, that at least superficially would be the conclusion that I would draw. We can say about these people that they are indeed what Abraham Lincoln might say, a team of rivals. They have exhibited strength in previous positions, and they bring a certain hard-headedness to the positions that they'll occupy. And so for people who are quite alarmed about the election of President-elect Obama in regard to foreign and military policy, he is giving them some reason to think that he will govern from a center-left position and will perhaps send some signals of strength to the world, will cause Israeli allies to feel much more at peace with him than they would have otherwise. And
now let me
go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that key statement, which was largely crystallized his campaign early on and undercut, I think, in the Democratic primary electorate support for Senator Clinton, and that was, I want our troops out of Iraq in 16 months, period, flat, end of discussion. Now, I don't know that he's ever repudiated that. He sort of amended it and thrown in words like prudently and this sort of thing, but he hasn't actually come out and mentioned that deadline in a long time, and I'm wondering just how flexible that has now become.
Well, he's had a lifetime politically of flexibility. He has grown up in Cook County, Chicago politics. I'm a native of Illinois, and I think that we're dealing with someone who is a political pragmatist, and he understood what he needed to do to get the Democratic Party nomination, and what we have seen from that point of organizing around folks associated with MoveOn.org and other left-leaning organizations is that he has gradually moved to the center as he has been able to. He understands that most Americans are in the center of a bell curve. They're not far left and they're not far right.
Well, how did he amass that voting record, which is the National Journal, which is a respected and nonpartisan group, assessed the liberal to conservative spectrum right up and down the list of the 100 U.S. senators, and there he was, right there at number one, most liberal, with Senator DeMint of South Carolina, where I'm currently seated at this exact moment. He's at the conservative end of that spectrum. If he was so interested in being a centrist, how did he amass that voting record?
Well, that was the voting record that enabled him to get elected to the United States Senate and to serve there. When he was a state senator, those were his positions, and so some people might say that what he's doing is simply kind of a smokescreen.
Is he showing a great versatility of conviction?
Well, yes. And that the critics would say he lacks a solid core, or other critics would say he has a solid core. What he's doing now is simply a front. He's biding time until he can accomplish what he really believes in. And what he really believes in is that solid left-wing voting record of his Senate days.
Well, let me ask you this as we go to the break here, but are we talking about the third Bill Clinton term? A lot of people thought that's what Hillary represented, but I mean, that level of tap dance to the left, tap dance to the center, that's vintage Bill Clinton.
That's right, and Bill Clinton demonstrated the same thing. He moved hard left to get the nomination, and then he moved back to the center in order to govern because he recognized the magnet of the middle in America. That's the force that governs. That's the force that would enable President-elect Obama to win re-election.
Okay, we're going to have to take a quick break here, and we'll come back and follow that thought with Dr. Charles Dunn. He is Dean of Regent University's Robertson School of Government. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Jimbo Hannon Show, as we are talking tonight about the new administration's team, and doing so with Dr. Charles Dunn, Dean of Regent University's Robertson School of Government. Let's look back on some of the people he's picked for his economic team. How would you assess them in comparison with this security team? If
you look at their statements on key economic issues, you might say, as President-elect Obama really chosen a Republican economic team. From all appearances, given their official public statements on key policies, they are about as centrist economically as you would expect them to be. So when we're looking at economics, foreign policy, or military policy, it appears like we're seeing something of a seamless transition between the administration of President Bush and that of President-elect Obama. And then if you ask the question, why is this? Well, as we discussed earlier, is it that President-elect Obama doesn't have a solid core of beliefs? Does he lack the conviction to try to implement what his real beliefs are? Or has he been mugged by the reality of the situation? All of a sudden I must govern, and really to govern effectively I'm going to have to move to the center. There's some big questions that remain unanswered about him. But at least on the surface, in a period of really great uncertainty and instability among us as Americans today, what I think President-elect Obama recognizes is that we need to have stability, and he has to give us that feeling of stability. And one way to do that is to put in high positions people who have strength but who have ideas and an ideology that's much more centrist than far left. So he is creating a situation where we as Americans have this feeling of stability, and that will enable him to have a longer grace period or honeymoon period that he would have otherwise. And we have to
how do you think this is going to go with, let's say, Speaker Nancy Pelosi or Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid? Now, they've got all these new members in there raring to go, and depending on the outcome of the Minnesota and Georgia Senate races, perhaps they'll even have a filibuster-proof U.S. Senate. And a lot of these folks are very ideological, and they see this as the grand opening. Who knows what may happen in the 20-term midterm elections. So between now and 2010, this is the time to go full speed ahead. National health care, care and a host of other issues. Can you see President Obama and the congressional leadership clashing on some of these issues?
Yes, but we also have the statement, a surprising statement from Speaker Pelosi, that President-elect Obama would need to govern from a centrist position. Conflicts with Speaker Pelosi's background from San Francisco, and of course conflicts with Senator Reid's background and positions. So we could expect that there will be some frontal assaults, one on the other, if not openly, then at least behind the scenes. But there is, again, that grace period, that honeymoon period. And if we look beneath the surface of those Democratic majorities, the Blue Dog Democrats, they're a very substantial number in the House of Representatives. And she has to be cognizant of that. Also, she has to be cognizant that the number one person under her is Steny Hoyer, who is not a far-left Democrat and represents a solid core belief in the Democratic Party in the U.S. House of Representatives. So she has to balance things, and the best balancing act for her right now is in this honeymoon period.
Are we losing you? Did we lose the caller?
I'm here.
Are you there? Okay, yeah. I heard there was some cutting in and out there, I thought, but perhaps that was on my end. So certainly, Steny Hoyer, who is the number 2 House Democrat and who lost in the battle for leadership of House Democrats some years ago to Nancy Pelosi, certainly he is not a doctrinaire leftist by any stretch of the imagination. I also note, quite frankly, that a lot of these newly elected members of Congress on either side may realize that it was a period of an unpopular war, an unpopular president, bad economic times, and therefore, put another way, these new people coming to Capitol Hill hardly have a free ride the next time they're up for re-election, especially House members in 2 years. So perhaps prudence may dictate that even if they veer more to the left, that they might have to vote more toward the center.
You've made an excellent point there. President-elect Obama did not win an overwhelming majority. We'd have to say that Senator McCain did far better than expectations would have indicated. So this was a narrower victory than anyone who wanted to govern from the far left would need really to govern effectively. So the thing that Mr. Obama must do is point forward to 2 years and midterm elections. And normally that's a downtime, historically, for the incumbent party in the White House. Okay, you win the presidency, but 2 years later you lose members in the U.S. House and U.S. Senate. So he is staking out a position now that for him will hopefully enable his people to retain office 2 years from now. So he's taking some long-term positions now with regard to his economic team and his foreign policy team.
You know, if in fact there is this much of a sellout of the far left, and I confess that doesn't happen to be my personal persuasion, but if I were of that persuasion, I think I might call it a sellout. Could you see a challenge from the left to President Obama in 2012, maybe a Dennis Kucinich or somebody of that nature challenging him?
Yes. I would not be surprised. That would be the case. Again, if I were George Soros, given what I'm looking at now in the policy positions, the personnel being put in place, I would say, I think I've made a bad investment here. And I want to be looking elsewhere to what I can do to shore up the weakness in my investment, which in the long run could be to help finance somebody against President Obama at that time.
It'll be interesting to certainly see if there is such a challenge, although, of course, in the past, presidents like Richard Nixon have used such challenges, nuisance challenges, to simply prove that they were more centrist. So, I mean, Obama could use such... I think if I were Barack Obama, I would pay Dennis Kucinich, challenge me from the left so I can go to the electorate in 2012 and say, see, I'm not as left-wing as you thought.
Oh, yes, sometimes a challenger is just a favorite in disguise, and it gives you somebody to beat around like you're hitting flies at a summer church picnic.
Exactly. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back with more as we talk tonight with Dr. Charles Dunn from Regent University's Robertson School of Government. He is dean there. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO. We'll be back with more thoughts about the new administration in a moment.